So then you want to be able to do some more editing on the sound to get it the way you want it. And we're going to look at more sophisticated ways to do that, but Audacity for simple sound editing is actually a great tool.
Speed.
Hello, this is...
So first of all, I want to cut myself out saying speed, so I'll just highlight that with the I-beam tool, hit delete, and I can zoom in with the plus tool, and typically you're just going to want to add a little fade at the beginning. That's an effect. Fade in. And that will just fade up that noise floor.
Hello, this is Neov Conti, and I'm...
Because anytime noise cuts in or out, it becomes more noticeable. But when it fades in and out, we don't really hear it in the same way. So let's see if there's anything else we want to do with this sound file.
Hello, this is Neov Conti, and I'm speaking to you from another dimension. This is a kind and loving dimension, one where we're not all assholes, one...
So there we can hear there's some kind of error in the sound. So we'll zoom in on that section of the sound where there's the problem. And using the I-beam, I can select an area, and then I can play it with the space bar or the play button.
One where we're not all assholes.
I can zoom in even further and try and visually see if I can find what might be the problem. If I zoom right in on where I'm hearing that problem, I see something here that looks problematic to me. Right? Because typically our sound waveform keeps crossing the 0 point in an oscillation. It goes up and then down and then up and then down and then up and then down. It's got this other little sound in it as well, but that's also up and down, up and down, up and down. And then here suddenly it does two ups above the 0. And so that to me looks like it could be our pop. The other thing that looks like a pop about this is if we zoom in even further, this line is straight up and down, which means that the speaker is changing positions very, very rapidly. So those things suggest to me that this may be the pop we want to get rid of. And we can try and delete it. We take the I-beam tool and select a section of sound, and we can just get rid of it. But there's two things I did here that are very important. Notice I started my selection on a 0 crossing, where the sound is crossing the 0 line. And I also ended my selection on a 0 crossing. Because if I don't, I can get something like this, where I've just created this M shape, the same problem I just tried to delete. So start on a 0 crossing, end on a 0 crossing, and make sure you start on a descending 0 crossing and end on a descending 0 crossing. When I hit delete, I get a very natural looking transition in the waveform. It's going up to down, and that's the point where I cut it, but you can't see any cut there. There's no discontinuity, there's no speaker cone jump. Now I'm not saying that will necessarily solve the problem, but let's zoom back out and see if it did.
We're not.
And it did. There's still something a little odd about this.
One where we're not. One where we're not.
But at least there's no more pop in there to draw the listener's attention to it. I want to show you one other way to solve the same problem. That's just another tool for you to have in your toolbox. So I'm going to undo the delete and put back that sound that was there. And I'm going to zoom back in on it. And there's my problem piece of sound. So I go Edit, Clip Boundaries, Split, and that creates a slice or an edit in my audio. And around that, I can create a crossfade. So I can, for instance, click here, drag across to there, and this is the region that will be crossfaded. So this part to the left of my cut will be faded out, while this part to the right is faded in, and the clips will be moved so that they overlap each other. This is a standard audio crossfade. One thing gets turned down while another thing gets turned up. So I'll say Effect, Crossfade Clips. And this should produce a very similar result that might be a little smoother or a little bit more to your liking.
One where we're not. One where we're not. One where we're not.
I feel like they're probably pretty equivalent. Right, so let's use this tool to zoom back out to our whole audio file, listen to the whole thing again, see if there's any more problems that we want to deal with.
Hello, this is F2020, and I'm speaking to you from another dimension. This is a kind and loving dimension, one where we're not all assholes, one where there's still hope for humanity. We'll see how long it lasts before they discover us and pervert it. Goodbye.
So there don't seem to be any other real problems in the sound, but I don't think her pacing is great. In part because this was improvised, she didn't know what she was going to say, and it's just a microphone test. It's not actually something scripted or even intentional. So let's see if we can make this pacing flow a little more nicely.
One where we're not all assholes, one where there's still hope for humanity. We'll see how long it lasts.
So I feel like that pause is a little bit too long. I want we'll see how long it lasts come in just a little bit earlier. So use the same tool of deletion to alter the timing. And while we're at it, you see there's a little something there. There's a little maybe smacking noise. So I'm going to tighten up the timing and also get rid of that anomaly just by hitting delete.
Still hope for humanity. We'll see how long it lasts.
And because it's just background noise there, because the sound level is very low, I don't really have to worry about zero crossings because it's just the noise floor anyway. I'm not going to create a big pop by doing that. So let's see how that timing worked out.
One where there's still hope for humanity. We'll see how long it lasts.
Right. You see, the rhythm of that is much better. It just feels better. And, working with sound is a lot about feeling. What's too long, what's too short. Make it feel right to you. Let's play the rest of it.
We'll see how long it lasts before they discover us and pervert it. Goodbye.
Okay, so there's a little mouth sound here at the end that I'm going to just delete.
Goodbye.
And there's a little bit of noise when the recorder shuts off that I'll delete, and then just do a little effect fade out at the end so that noise fades out gradually.
And pervert it. Goodbye.
Quite nice. So I'm pretty satisfied with that. We've got a good rhythm. We've removed the problematic parts, we've reduced the noise, we've normalized, we've faded in at the beginning and the end. We can save this. So there's two ways to save in Audacity. If you just go to File, Save Project, it will save a project file, which is not an audio file that you can play back. So we'll say Save Project As, and it'll warn you. Save Project is from an Audacity project, not an audio file. For an audio file that will open in other apps, use export. And that's what I've done here. You can see I've saved Nyav New World project. And there's actually no real reason to save a project if you're dealing with only one track of audio. You don't need to do this. If we start using Audacity for multi-track applications, then saving the project becomes important. But for right now, you don't need to save a project. And if you save an Audacity project, it will only reopen in Audacity. However, export is what you want to do. And for this class, we're primarily going to work with WAV files. WAV files are uncompressed, high-quality audio files that open up in pretty much any application. And so we're going to do export as WAV. And then you want to make sure that you don't save over your raw audio file, because I'm actually going to want you to submit both. And also you want to keep your raw audio files. If you make a change to a sound, because this is destructive audio editing, if you make a change to a sound that you're not happy with, you want to be able to go back to the original recording. So I say Nyav New World, edited, and then often it's useful to put a date or a version number. So I could say edited 8/28 V1, save that. You can add metadata to the file, but it's not really necessary for a WAV file. It's important if you're exporting MP3 files that you're going to upload to some sort of service, but you can leave the metadata blank on these. And so these editing tools I gave you, they're just the very first simple basic editing tools, but you want to get very comfortable and familiar with these. So when you record your story, I want you to go in there, normalize it, noise reduce it, put some fades at the beginning and the end, and then really go through it and work it to remove any errors. And of course, if you stumble or repeat a section, you'll want to choose the version that you like and keep that and delete the other. And also edit for pacing so that things are paced the way that you want them to be. And just for fun, this audio recording, which was just a mic check, it was nothing important, but I liked it a lot. I liked what she said a lot. So I made a meme piece of it, which is kind of taking the sample and setting it to music, which is something we're going to do as a project later on in this class. Not that you need to compose the music. You'll be able to download loops and remix the music rather than create it yourself if you're a non-musician. But the idea of taking a quote or a sound bite and setting it to music is kind of a fun idea that's circulating a lot on the internet right now, and it's an interesting mode of storytelling in its own right. All right, so thanks. And I look forward to receiving your work, and hit me up if you have any questions. Otherwise, we'll see you next week.
Hello, this is Neov Conti, and I'm speaking to you from another dimension. This is a kind and loving dimension. One where we're not all assholes. One where there's still hope for humanity. We'll see how long it lasts before they discover us and pervert